The United States government has formally accused allies of Mexico's president of working hand in hand with one of the most dangerous drug trafficking organizations on earth, the Sinaloa Cartel, the same organization that produced El Chapo, the same cartel that pumped fentanyl into American cities and killed over 70,000 Americans every single year. And the woman sitting in Mexico's presidential palace right now, she's refusing to hand them over. Elon Musk went on X and said she's just saying what her cartel bosses tell her to say. When someone asked point blank, she's a cartel plant, right? Nobody in power stepped up to seriously deny it. And that question didn't come from nowhere. This is the story of Claudia Sheinbaum, scientist, climate researcher, Nobel Prize winner, Mexico's first female president, and the woman the United States says is protecting narco-linked politicians inside the most powerful cartel corridor in the Western Hemisphere. Stay locked in, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how a PhD academic ended up at the center of the biggest narco politics scandal Mexico has seen in a generation. Let's set the scene first because the backdrop of this whole thing matters. The 2026 U.S. National Drug Control Strategy officially identifies Mexico as the center of Washington's entire anti-drug campaign. They have formally designated Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations, and they have classified fentanyl, the drug fled out of Sinaloa state, as a weapon of mass destruction, not a drug problem, not a trafficking issue, a weapon of mass destruction. That is how serious the U.S. government is treating what is coming across that border every single day. And right in the middle of all of it, Claudia Sheinbaum, sitting in the National Palace in Mexico City, holding press conferences every morning, talking about sovereignty, talking about evidence, talking about how the U.S. is meddling in Mexican affairs. But here's what really went down. And to understand it, we got to go all the way back to where she came from, because where she came from matters more than most people realize. Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo was born on June 24, 1962, in Mexico City. On paper, her story reads like one of the cleanest origin stories in politics. No street connections, no dirty money, no family with cartel ties. Her come up was pure academia. Her mother was a biologist and professor at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, known as UNAM. Her father was a chemical engineer. Two scientists raising their daughter in one of the most politically charged cities on the planet. And the political charge ran deep in that household from day one. Her parents were involved in Mexico's 1968 protest movement. For people who don't know, that was a massacre. The Mexican government gunned down hundreds of student demonstrators in what became known as the Tlatelolco massacre. The government didn't just suppress the protests, they buried it, covered it up, denied it for decades. That is the world little Claudia was raised in. A world where the government was the enemy, where the establishment couldn't be trusted, and where fighting the system was in your blood. And they went back even further than that. Her paternal grandfather immigrated from Lithuania to Mexico in 1928 and became a member of the Mexican Communist Party. Her mother's family arrived in Mexico after fleeing the persecution of Jews in Bulgaria during World War II. So this is a family that has seen real oppression, real state violence, real persecution. And they brought all of that political DNA with them and passed it straight down to Claudia. Growing up in that household, she didn't go left for clout. She went left because everything around her pointed that direction. Her parents were scientists and activists. Her grandfather was a communist. The 1968 massacre was family mythology. By the time she hit university, she wasn't just a student. She was already a fighter. She earned her bachelor's degree in physics from UNAM in 1989, then went back and got her master's degree in energy engineering, then her PhD in energy engineering in 1995, also from UNAM, while conducting doctoral research at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in California. Over 100 academic papers, 2 books, and then, on top of all of that, she was one of the scientists and policymakers who shared the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize for their work on the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a Nobel Prize, for real. The woman has a Nobel Prize, so ask yourself, how does someone with that kind of pedigree end up being called a narco plant by the United States government? How does a climate scientist with a Nobel Prize end up refusing to extradite cartel-linked politicians while Washington calls her government an ally of drug traffickers? That answer starts with one man, His name is Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, known everywhere as AMLO. And without AMLO, there is no President Sheinbaum, not even close. Sheinbaum first entered politics in 2000 when AMLO, then the head of government of Mexico City, appointed her as the city's environmental secretary. That's when her trajectory changed completely. She wasn't just a scientist anymore. She was inside the machine now, and the machine belonged to AMLO. Here's what you need to understand about AMLO, because the whole story is impossible without him. He is one of the most complicated, polarizing political figures Mexico has ever produced. He spent decades getting robbed at the ballot box, ran for president in 2006, lost under deeply suspicious circumstances, ran again in 2012, lost again. He was the voice of the poor, the indigenous communities, the people who got left behind by decades of corrupt elite governance. And when he finally won in 2018 by a massive landslide, people in Mexico lost their minds in the best way. This was supposed to be the clean break, the real change, the fourth transformation, he called it. But here's what actually happened once AMLO got into power. When he was running for president in 2018, he had promised to curb impunity for organized crime. Once he got elected, he prioritized the growth of Morena, the party he founded, above everything else. He recruited and defended politicians with alleged criminal ties. He even pressured the first Trump administration to return a top Mexican army general who had been arrested in the United States on drug smuggling charges. That general, Salvador Cienfuegos, was the head of Mexico's entire military, arrested by the DEA in Los Angeles. And AMLO didn't say cooperate with the investigation. AMLO said bring him home. And incredibly, the Trump administration complied. Cienfuegos went back to Mexico and was cleared. That right there told you everything you needed to know about how AMLO operated, always protecting the circle. And sitting right there inside that circle, Claudia Sheinbaum, his most trusted ally, his hand-picked successor, his person. But it gets darker. DEA investigations and reporting from ProPublica and other news organizations allege that major cocaine traffickers funneled around $2 million into AMLO's 2006 presidential campaign. Witnesses reportedly told the DEA that the money was provided in return for a promise that a future Lopez Obrador government would tolerate the cartel's operations. Investigators believe the Sinaloa cartel had donated between $2 and $4 million to his campaign, funneled through Arturo Beltran Leyva. AMLO denied it furiously, called it slander, said there was zero evidence. But the US government looked into it seriously. They opened an inquiry, they had witnesses, and then they quietly shelved the whole investigation. Officials concluded the US government had, quote, little appetite to pursue allegations against the leader of one of America's top allies. No appetite, they let it go. AMLO stayed in power. His hugs not bullets philosophy stayed in place, and organized crime in Mexico kept growing. While all of this was unfolding, Claudia Sheinbaum wasn't on the sidelines watching. She was governing Mexico City under AMLO's banner. She was part of the Morena machine. She was the person he was grooming to carry everything forward, and she won the 2024 presidential election with approximately 60% of the vote. In a country of 130 million people, that's not just a win, that's a mandate. But what kind of mandate and for whom? That's where it starts to get real. The moment Sheinbaum stepped into the National Palace in October 2024, she didn't just inherit a presidency, she inherited a catastrophe. AMLO's hugs not bullets approach had been an open invitation to the cartels for 6 years straight. Violence across Mexico had hit record highs. Fentanyl production in Sinaloa was exploding, and the Sinaloa cartel, the most powerful drug trafficking organization on the planet, was at war with itself after the capture of El Mayo Zambada. Here's what went down with that. In the summer of 2024, Ismael El Mayo Zambada, one of the most wanted narcos in Mexican history who had evaded capture for decades, was taken into U.S. custody. After he was arrested, El Mayo made a statement that sent shockwaves through Mexico. He said he had been on his way to meet with Sinaloa Governor Ruben Rocha Moya to settle a dispute, and that the man he was supposedly going to meet with that night, former Culiacan Municipal President Hector Belicio Cuellar Ojeda, was murdered on the very night of that meeting. Let that land. One of the most powerful narcos in Mexico's history claims he was on his way to meet with the sitting governor of Sinaloa. Not a street lieutenant, not some low-level corrupt official, the governor. And that meeting, whatever it was supposed to be, ended in a murder and El Mayo getting handed to the United States. And what did Sheinbaum do when this story broke? She publicly defended Rocco Moya. The same day El Mayo's letter was made public, she stood next to AMLO and voiced her support for the Sinaloa governor. The same day, that move raised eyebrows, but nobody could have predicted what was coming in April 2026. On April 29, 2026, a bombshell indictment was unsealed in federal court in New York. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, the same court that convicted El Chapo, announced charges against 10 current and former Mexican officials for drug trafficking, arms offenses, and conspiracy with the Sinaloa cartel. Topping the list, Ruben Rocha Moya, the sitting governor of Sinaloa, also indicted a federal senator from Sinaloa named Enrique Nzunza, the sitting mayor of Culiacan, the state capital, Juan de Dios Gomez, and 7 other current and former Mexican officials, all of them accused of conspiring with the Sinaloa cartel to import massive quantities of drugs into the United States in exchange for political support and bribes. The governor, a sitting U.S. indicted senator, the mayor of the capital city, all from Morena, all from Sheinbaum's party, all named in one of the most significant cartel government corruption indictments in modern history. This was unprecedented. Retired Mexican diplomats went on record saying it was the first time the U.S. government had ever formally linked the Mexican government to drug trafficking in an official legal document. Not an accusation in a press conference, not a White House statement, a federal indictment in the Southern District of New York. And what did Sheinbaum do the very next morning? She went to her daily press conference and told the world Mexico wasn't handing anybody over. We are not permitting a foreign government to say what is the future of Mexico, she said. She called the U.S. prosecution political. She said the evidence wasn't sufficient. She said foreign meddling in Mexico's affairs would not be tolerated. Her own party's governor, named as a Sinaloa cartel collaborator by federal prosecutors. And she drew the line: no extradition, no arrest, no compliance. Analysts didn't mince words. One professor of international relations in Mexico City put it this way: there is no way out of this for Claudia Sheinbaum. Even if you give the U.S. what it wants, you can see from the past months that Trump will just ask for more. There is no limit. But the question people are asking goes deeper than that, because if she genuinely had no connection to any of this, the political calculation would be simple. Cut loose the people, the U.S. Just indict it, show you're serious about rule of law, and come out looking strong. That's what an innocent leader does. Instead, she protected them, and that protection tells a story. Now let's go back to the White House accusations, because they didn't start with the indictments. This pressure had been building for months before April 2026. The White House formally accused Mexico's government of having what they called an intolerable alliance with drug trafficking groups. That's not a tweet, not a campaign rally insult. That is the official position of the United States government put into formal documentation, the first time that had ever happened between these two countries in this way. Sheinbaum came out swinging. She called it slander. She said her government has seized more than 40 tons of drugs in 4 months, including 20 million doses of fentanyl. She said they had arrested more than 10,000 people with cartel connections. She flipped the narrative and pointed the finger back at the U.S., saying American citizens were coming into Mexico to do illegal business with organized crime, and that if there was a real alliance anywhere, it was in American gun shops selling high-powered weapons to the cartels. That's a bold counter, and honestly, some of it is factually grounded. The U.S. does have a massive gun trafficking problem into Mexico, but pointing at American gun shops while refusing to extradite your own governor who's been indicted for cartel collaboration, that's not a defense, that's misdirection. Then came the tariff war. Trump threatened 25% tariffs on all Mexican goods because of illegal immigration and drug smuggling. The United States buys more than 80% of everything Mexico exports. A full tariff would have pushed Mexico into a severe economic recession. Some analysts estimated a 4% drop in GDP if those tariffs stayed all year. That's catastrophic for a country already on the edge. Sheinbaum blinked. She agreed to deploy 10,000 members of the National Guard to the U.S.-Mexico border immediately to combat drug trafficking. Trump paused the tariffs. That right there showed you the dynamic clearly. The U.S. has enough economic leverage over Mexico to force military deployments with a threat. That's how much pressure Sheinbaum is operating under. And yet even under that pressure, she still wouldn't touch the indicted politicians inside her own party. Then Elon Musk lit the fuse on another level. After the killing of a major cartel leader, somebody resurfaced a 2025 video of Sheinbaum saying, and this is her actual quote, "Returning to the war against the narco is not an option. First, because it is outside the framework of the law." Musk saw the video, saw the question someone posted with it, "She's a cartel plan, right?" and responded, "She's just saying what her cartel bosses tell her to say." Let's just say that their punishment for disobedience is a little worse than a performance improvement plan. Billions of followers, the world's most viewed social media platform, and the richest man on earth calling the president of Mexico a cartel puppet. Sheinbaum threatened legal action against him, said her government was evaluating whether to sue. Think about where that leaves her optics. Suing Elon Musk for calling her a narco plan, while refusing to extradite the narco-linked governor her party put in power, while telling the US to send more evidence even after a Southern District of New York indictment. No cap, that's a bad hand to be playing with in public. Now here's where you gotta be real about the bigger picture, because this isn't just about one woman or one political party. This is about a system that has been corroding for decades. Mexico's relationship with cartel money and political power goes back generations. The PRI, the party that ran Mexico for 71 straight years before AMLO's movement broke through, was thoroughly infiltrated by cartel influence at every level. When AMLO came in promising to change all of that, a lot of people genuinely believed him, and some of what he did was real. But the structural rot had been growing for so long that even a sincere attempt to clean it up was always going to get contaminated somewhere along the way. What AMLO actually did was stop the military offensive against the cartels, pull back the direct confrontation, said poverty was the root cause of cartels. Socially, there's logic in that argument. Politically, what it meant in practice was that cartel operations expanded during his entire presidency, essentially unchallenged. Fentanyl production in Sinaloa grew. The CJ&G expanded their territory. Violence hit record highs multiple years in a row. And through all of that, Morena, AMLO's party, was locking in political power at the state and local level all across the country, including in Sinaloa, including with politicians who the US government now says were literally on the cartel payroll. Sheinbaum is the inheritor of all of that. She didn't build the machine, but she runs it now, and when the US comes to her and says, "Your governor's a cartel collaborator," the machine is what she's protecting when she says no. To her credit, she came in and publicly dumped the Hugs Not Bullets policy. She allowed US surveillance flights over Mexican territory, something AMLO would have never agreed to. She handed over 92 cartel bosses to US authorities, bypassing the formal extradition process to do it. 92 people. That's real cooperation. That's not the behavior of someone who is fully in the pocket of organized crime. But there she draws the line at politicians, at Morena officials, at the people whose political support makes her administration possible. And that line is the thing that makes the accusation stick. Because you can hand over 92 cartel bosses and still be protecting the system if you won't touch the people who run the political side of that system. One analyst at the Brookings Institution put it clearly. She appears to be buying time, essentially saying the US indictment evidence isn't sufficient while asking Mexico's own attorney general to review it, all while knowing full well that a Mexican review is never going to produce the same result as a Southern District of New York grand jury. So what's the legacy here? What does this all mean going forward? Claudia Sheinbaum has done something no woman had ever done in Mexico. She won the presidency of a country of 130 million people with 60% of the vote. She is a Nobel laureate, a climate scientist who spent her career trying to make the world more sustainable. On every metric of personal integrity before she entered politics, she was clean. But politics in Mexico doesn't care about your personal integrity. It cares about the alliances you make, the debts you carry, and the circles you protect. And the circles she is protecting right now, the Morena machine, the Sinaloa state political apparatus, the party allies that AMLO built, those circles have serious, documented, federally indicted connections to the most powerful drug cartel on earth. The US is not backing down. Trump has already demonstrated he'll use economic warfare to force Mexico's hand. The tariff threat worked once. He'll use it again. The Southern District of New York has already moved once with this indictment. The DEA, the Justice Department, the entire apparatus of U.S. drug enforcement is pointed at Sinaloa and at the political network that protected it. Sheinbaum is going to have to make a decision. Either she breaks with her own party, hands over Rocha Moya and the others, accepts the U.S. evidence, cooperates fully, and risks fracturing Morena and potentially her entire political base, or she holds the line on sovereignty, keeps protecting the circle, and faces escalating sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and the permanent label of a leader who chose cartel-linked politicians over justice. Neither option is clean, neither option is safe. And that's why analysts keep saying the same thing. There is no way out of this for Claudia Sheinbaum. Was she planted by the cartels? The evidence doesn't support that specific claim. She didn't come up in cartel culture. She wasn't recruited by organized crime. Her personal background is academic, leftist, and activist, not narco. But was she shaped by a political movement that allowed cartel money and cartel influence to penetrate the highest levels of Mexican governance? The evidence for that is sitting in a sealed federal indictment in the Southern District of New York with 10 names on it. And the biggest name protecting all 10 of those people is hers. That's the story. That's what's really going on. And the world is watching every press conference, every refusal, every carefully worded statement about sovereignty and evidence and foreign meddling, waiting to see if the woman with the Nobel Prize is going to find a way out of the trap she walked into. The clock is running, and the cartels, the White House, and 130 million Mexicans are all waiting on the same answer.